The first thing that shattered the silence that evening was not a scream or a slap, but a sentence sharp enough to cut through years of buried loneliness. A moment so small yet explosive that it rewrote everything I thought I knew about myself and her. One careless accusation, one reckless response, and suddenly the fragile walls we had built around our hearts began to crack, letting in light we never planned to face. That night did not begin with romance or forgiveness. It began with tension, shame, and a truth neither of us was ready to admit. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of human connection, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that hearts can still heal. My name is Matthew Collins, and at that time in my life I was surviving more than living. I had moved to a small apartment complex in Columbus, Ohio, after my marriage collapsed under the weight of silence and misunderstandings. The walls of that apartment were thin, but the loneliness inside me was thicker than concrete. Every morning I left early for my job at a distribution warehouse, and every night I came back to a place that felt less like home and more like a waiting room for a life that never arrived. I kept to myself, not because I disliked people, but because I no longer trusted my ability to connect without breaking something. That was when I noticed her, almost by accident, like noticing a song playing softly in the background of a noisy room. Her name was Grace Whitaker, a single mother living 2 doors down with her young son Noah. She carried exhaustion in her posture and strength in her eyes, the kind of strength that comes from holding everything together when no one is watching. We crossed paths in the hallway, near the mailboxes, in the parking lot during rushed mornings, always exchanging polite nods that never turned into conversations. There was something unspoken between us, a shared understanding of loss, but neither of us dared reach for it. The incident happened on an ordinary evening, the kind that usually fades into memory. I was standing near my window, lost in thought, staring out at the dimly lit courtyard below. The rain had just stopped, leaving the air heavy and reflective, the ground shining like glass. Grace was across the way, standing near her window, adjusting the curtains, unaware that our lines of sight had crossed. Before I could even move away, the moment snapped. She turned, startled, and the tension exploded into words that accused without mercy. My response came from a place of hurt pride and bottled frustration, a line spoken too sharply, too defensively, carrying meanings I did not intend. The silence afterward was unbearable. Her face hardened, not with anger, but with something far worse, disappointment mixed with old fear. She shut her curtains, and just like that, the fragile thread between us seemed severed. I spent that night staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment again and again, realizing that what she saw was not a lonely man lost in thought, but a threat, a reminder of everything she had learned to guard against. It broke something inside me, not because I was misunderstood, but because I understood why. The days that followed were heavier. The hallway felt narrower, the air thicker. Grace avoided eye contact, and I could feel the weight of her discomfort every time our paths nearly crossed. I wanted to apologize, to explain, but fear held me back. Fear of making it worse, fear of reopening wounds I could not heal. I told myself it was better to stay silent, to let time smooth things over. But time has a cruel way of deepening silence when courage is absent. Everything changed the afternoon I found Noah sitting alone on the apartment steps. Tears streaking his face, his small hands shaking as he tried to hold back sobs too big for his body. Grace's car was gone, and panic set in as I realized something was wrong. I learned from a neighbor that Grace had been rushed to the hospital after collapsing at work. Without thinking, instinct took over. I sat beside Noah, offering quiet reassurance, calling the hospital, staying with him until a relative could arrive. In that moment there was no fear, no misunderstanding, only a child who needed someone to be there. Grace returned 2 days later, pale and weak but alive. When she saw me helping Noah with his backpack in the hallway, something shifted. Her eyes filled not with suspicion but with recognition. She invited me into her apartment, not with words, but with a look that asked for honesty. We sat across from each other, the air thick with things unsaid, and for the first time, I allowed myself to be vulnerable. I shared my loneliness, my broken marriage, my regret over that night. I explained that I had never been watching her, that I'd simply been lost in my own reflection, unaware of how it looked from the outside. Grace listened quietly, her hands folded, her face softening with every passing second. She spoke then, not in anger, but in truth. She told me about her past, about a relationship that taught her to be alert, to protect herself at all costs. That moment near the window had triggered fears she thought she had buried. We were two people shaped by scars, reacting not to each other, but to memories that still hurt. From that day on, something fragile but real began to grow. We started with small gestures, shared coffee in the mornings, conversations about work, about Noah's school, about faith and forgiveness. It was not romance at first, but respect, the kind that heals before it loves. We learned to laugh again, to trust slowly, to forgive not just each other, but ourselves. The apartment complex no longer felt like a place of isolation, but a space where life quietly returned. Months passed, and the courtyard that once reflected rain now reflected laughter. Grace grew stronger, Noah grew taller, and I found myself becoming part of something I thought I had lost forever. The misunderstanding that once threatened to divide us became the foundation of honesty between us. It taught us that clarity matters, that kindness must be louder than fear, and that sometimes the most painful moments carry the seeds of the deepest connections. Just before the ending, I want to ask you something special. Please comment below and share what this story made you feel, or if you have ever been misunderstood in a moment that changed your life. On a quiet Sunday evening, as the sun dipped behind the buildings and the sky turned gold, I realized that love does not always arrive gently. Sometimes it crashes into us disguised as conflict, forcing us to confront who we are and who we want to become. Grace and I did not fall in love because everything was perfect. We fell in love because we chose to see each other clearly, beyond fear, beyond assumptions, beyond a single moment frozen in time. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that healing is possible and second chances are real, please like the video, share it, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement keeps stories like this alive, and your kindness might be exactly what someone else needs to believe again.